something with the splitting of that tax, maybe toward the sidewalks or some other city project. But from the ballot language, it looks like you're just going to go ahead with the split half of it to the street department and half of it into the general fund. And I wonder if there's any discussion about doing something else with that money.
The language is in the agendas, and there is none. It's a renewal, so it's exactly as it was passed 10 years ago.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ball. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on any of the items on the agenda? Seeing none, item 6, ordinances and resolutions, first reading, item 6A.
An ordinance repealing chapters 1341, 1342, and 1344 of Part 13, Title 3 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Amherst, and enacting a new chapter 1340 entitled Property Maintenance, which adopts the International Property Maintenance Code 2015 edition, including Appendix A, thereto relating to boarding standards with certain amendments and additional provisions, and amending Section 112503 of the Codified Ordinances to grant jurisdiction to the Board of Zoning Appeals to hear and determine appeals from decisions, notices, or orders of the code official acting under the International Property Maintenance Code.
Mr. Winarski.
I'd like to make the motion to send this to the second reading, please.
Mr. Calvin.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to send item 6A to the second reading. Comments or questions? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cowger?
Yes.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
Mr. Nahorn?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Janik?
Yes.
Mr. Van Turen?
Yes.
Mr. Dembinski?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item 6A is sent to the second reading. Item 6B.
An ordinance accepting a grant from the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation for the purchase of hoods and gloves for the fire department and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Van Turen. Mr. Mayor.
Talked to the fire chief here recently. Both these next couple items would be really appropriate if we also suspended rules. Those grants are ready to be given to us, so we can purchase those items for the fire department probably as soon as this passes. So I would definitely
suspend council rules, so 6B to be passed on first reading.
Thank you very much. Mr. Miller.
Thank you. Just a second and comment. I do not like emergency with suspension of rules, but in this case, the quicker we get this grant into the hands of the fire chief and the volunteers that work in our department, the better. So I'll support this. Thank you. No further.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, roll call vote on the suspension.
Mr. Cowger?
Yes.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
Mr. Nahorn?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Janik?
Yes.
Mr. Van Turen?
Yes.
Mr. Dembinski?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. That rule is suspended. Mr. Cowger.
Move to adopt.
Mr. Dembinski.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to adopt. Comments or questions? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cowger?
Yes.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
Mr. Nahorn?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Janik?
Yes.
Mr. Van Turen?
Yes.
Mr. Dembinski?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 7-0.
It'll be ordinance 01828.
Go to item 6C.
An ordinance authorizing the reappropriation of funds in the fire department and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Dembinski.
Move to suspend council rules that item 6C may be passed on the first reading.
Mr. Calver.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to suspend the rule that requires 3 readings so that this can be passed on the first reading. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cowger?
Yes.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
Mr. Nahorn?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Janik?
Yes.
Mr. Van Turen?
Yes.
Mr. Dembinski?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Mr. Dembinski.
Move to adopt.
Mr. Janik.
Second?
There's a motion and a second to adopt. Comments or questions? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cowger?
Yes.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
Mr. Nahorn?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Janik?
Yes.
Mr. Van Turen?
Yes.
Mr. Dembinski?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Item 6C is adopted.
It'll be ordinance 01829.
Go to item 6D.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the Safety Service Director to submit an application to the Ohio Public Works Commission for State Issue 1, Round 33, funds for the year 2019 for roadway improvements and repairs on North Main Street and Cooper Foster Park Road, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Mayor.
This application's due now, and it's $750,000 we're applying for. It'd be about $250,000 in grants. Probably we also suspend rules for this item so we can get this submitted, and it'd be really crucial to get this to ODOT as soon as possible.
Thank you. Mr. Dembinski,
Move to suspend council rules so that items.
adopted on the first reading. Comments or questions? Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Mayor, thank you again for looking into this issue at that intersection. We need that fixed quickly. It's a safety issue. My understanding is 500 interest-free loan, 250 in a grant.
Is that what I said, or I mixed that up?
I'm just asking to make sure I got it right, because that's what,
I think that's what
okay.
I said.
And we've already budgeted, we're all good.
Yes.
Books are fine. All right, thank you. I yield the floor. No further questions. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Mr. Nahorn.
Just briefly, I also echo Mr. Miller's comments in that appreciate the administration continuing to take this issue seriously. A lot of safety concerns there, so appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further comments or questions, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cowger?
Yes.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
Mr. Nahorn?
Yes.
Mr. Cowger?
Yes.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
Mr. Nahorn?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Janik?
Yes.
Mr. Van Turen?
Yes.
Mr. Dembinski?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. This item number 6D is adopted.
It'll be ordinance 01830.
I would like to note, we're going on to item 6E and then 6F. 6F is, actually the subject is A 1837, and you should all have that correction. So item 6E, please.
An ordinance renewing for a period of 10 years the present 0.5% income tax levy previously approved and passed by the electors on November 3rd, 2009, subject to passage and approval of the voters of the city of Amherst at the primary election on May 7th, 2019.
Mr. Van Troon.
Am I correct in remembering that we don't need to have any kind of emergency we're planning?
And I'll know by the next council meeting. I think the math is correct. We've got enough time to not need either.
And
But
to remind
I'll
the
know
audience-
before the next meeting.
And to remind the audience, this is not something that goes into effect unless the issue passes on the ballot.
Correct.
I move to send this on to the next reading, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gallagher.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to send item 6E on to the next reading. Mr. Dembinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to reiterate part of what I had said during committee meeting, I still would like to see this go the full 0.5% back to doing streets. I understand, though, that by doing that, this would change it from a renewal into a replacement, and that the city needs to have, at the very least, the 0.25% go back into the general fund and the 0.25% go into the streets to facilitate our street program next year. Losing that would be more detrimental than putting the whole 0.5% back into streets. So that's why I'm still going to vote for this as is, even though I would like to see an increase in the street budget. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dembinski. Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Mayor, just again, confirm that this levy tax is not one that you can, because you're paying an income in another city, you can't get a reduction in your income tax. This is paid by everybody, isn't it?
This is paid by everybody within the city of Amherst. The original 1% that's levied by
Right.
council permanently has a forgiveness clause for what percentage you pay in another municipality. This is for everyone.
So by half of that going back into the general fund, that is a 0.5% of everybody in the city, and I think that needs to be made people aware of, that everybody's helping with this. It's
Right.
not just the few that.
It's half
that
of the
live
levy,
in-
so it's
that
actually
live in-
1/4%.
Right.
For general fund, 1/4%.
Instead of being given forgiveness on that,
Right.
which would really hurt, so.
Yeah,
It
we
also
really-
saves
we
us
really
from having
need
to go
that.
to another levy for income tax to even increase that for the city of Amherst and its businesses, so. I see this as kind of a win-win,
And
although
then,
you know how I feel about pedestrian-friendly streets coming up, so.
right. And can I continue to hold the floor and just make one more comment about Mr.
Absolutely. Yes,
Dembinski? And like I said last year, you really have my commitment. If there's extra money in the general fund, I'm gonna put it towards the streets. So this is really a win-win writing this way. If times get bad and we need this for the general fund, we use it. I spent, I think close to $250,000 of the general fund last money towards streets. So I used about, I'm gonna go a quarter of that 1/4% towards streets last year. And if times continue to get better, it could be more.
And it's appreciated.
Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cowger?
Yes.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
Mr. Nahorn?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Janik?
Yes.
Mr. Van Turen?
Yes.
Mr. Dembinski?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item 6E is passed to the second reading. Item 6F, please.
A resolution to place on the ballot for the primary election to be held on May 7, 2019, the question of renewing the 0.5% income tax levy previously passed on November 3, 2009, with a 0.5% income tax levy.
Mr. Cowger.
Make a motion to pass item F on to the second reading.
Mr. Dembinski.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to pass item 6F on to the second reading. Comments or questions? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cowger?
Yes.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
Mr. Nahorn?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Janik?
Yes.
Mr. Van Turen?
Yes.
Mr. Dembinski?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item 6F is sent to the second reading. That's all for item 6. Item 7, ordinances and resolutions. Second reading, there are none. Item 8, ordinances and resolutions. Third reading, there are none. We go to item 9.
She'll
Okay,
call on you.
let me call it, please. Thank you. Item 9, miscellaneous and acknowledgement of the public. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on any subject? If you do wish to speak on any subject, you'll raise your hand and I will call on you. And then once you're acknowledged, you go to the podium and state your name and your address. Madam Clerk may ask you to clarify your name or the spelling on your name or your address. And once we've got that correct, then you may go ahead and speak. I also ask that please do not speak provide new information if you're going to speak on the same topic. Please don't repeat the same information if you're going to be speaking on the same topic. So with that, I will acknowledge anyone who wishes to speak on any subject. Yes. Would you please go to the podium and state your name and your address?
My name is Robert Ivor. I live at 5525 Lynn Road, Amherst. And what I want to discuss is the meters that they put in for the electric and for the water, mostly the electric. Since they now it's 110. I think that's kind of high, and I'm not using nothing extravagant. I don't have air conditioning. I don't have any of that stuff going. I'd like to know how come my meter supposedly is reading all this readings when nobody's even cooking or nothing.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Bob? All right.
Yeah.
He came into the office early today and was expressing his interest. You were expressing your interest on that. You told me something along the line, you typically use 350 kilowatts, and for
Yeah.
some reason this one was 800 kilowatts.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Right.
And you'd also said that you never go above that amount. I kind of wished you to come into my office before you came here, but I ran a report over the last 18 months. And your average kilowatt usage over the last 18 months is 564 kilowatts a month. I've got at least 5 other months that are 700 or 800 kilowatts over the last year. So very similar to what you experienced this month. I don't see it as an exorbitant amount. It might be less than last month. May's billing typically is the lowest billing of the year. So if you're solely comparing that with just May's usage, but you can come into my office and get this report if you like. But just the last 18 months alone, like I said, you're averaging more than you said you never used more of this morning when I ran the reports on your kilowatt usage. And I did 18 months ago. There has been a slight increase. I show 7% difference in cost of what you spent 18 months ago till now. So when I ran all those reports, I don't see anything near double. Maybe double May's usage to June's usage, but when I run the entire report, I don't see that. So, you know, I kind of wish you to come in the office and go over this before, you know, there's really not much we can accomplish in front of council, but that's what I have found.
I still don't understand because I've looked at my bills too.
And the meters, your meter was changed just you know, a couple months ago. The new rates took in effect March. So honestly, the new rate effect has been in since March of this year. Five months of the new rates.
I wasn't told. I wasn't about it until it went up.
Well, it really doesn't reflect much difference, honestly. When you look at your averages, it really don't show a whole lot difference with total amount of usage. And the total dollar amount in the electric portion alone is 7%.
This is last year's, and it don't show nowhere near that. The highest one I got for last year was so far $48. That's the highest I've got, and that was 8/2017.
8 of 17?
Yeah. And all
I show
the-
597 kilowatts. I mean, even
Well,
if you
that's
times add it,
790.
even if you times add it,
Is that the number you're going by?
that's 790 kilowatts.
And you just
That-
told me
but-
it was 500.
So no, that's the next one. I've got that for the next one. So you're looking at 8. I'm looking at usage. You were talking what bill date?
I don't know. I don't know. Shit about this.
So you got 48, and let me look at this here too. Back then, I mean, a lot of people were complaining about our PPA, our purchase price adjustment. So back then, before we made this increase, we only charged about 5 or 6 cents a kilowatt. But there was a purchase price adjustment according to the amount that we paid as a city for our electricity. And that's reflected in your purchase price adjustment. So you actually have to take this $37.35 plus the $48.48. So, you know, I'm gonna do my quick math. That's like 80 some bucks, is your actual electric usage. And if you divide that by your 790, I'll bet you're somewhere between 11 and 12.5 cents a kilowatt, which right now we're at 13.1 cents a kilowatt. Again, about a 7% difference. So you have to add those two items together to get your actual electric utility cost. The same with your water. You have your water charge and your WSA, your water supply costs. And as a municipality, that's how we keep our prices as low as possible for our customers. We only pass along that adder, which we have a rate consultant figure out that adder every month. The amount of money we spend as a city that month to buy our power, we pass that along on top of our rate. Where other utility companies have all these other 4 or 5 other charges that are typically more than your electricity. Ours is all into one rate. We don't have delivery charges. We don't have transmission charges. We don't have extra customer charges and things. It's all into one rate. So if you do your math, like I said, I'll bet you're at 12 cents a year ago per kilowatt. And the average at that time with PUCO was probably 13.5 cents. Apples to apples, complete total bill. I mean, that might answer a lot of people's questions here, but like I said, I wish you to give me another day and came in the office. We could have sat down and so here or there is just as good. So that's my explanation. Did that help?
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll find out when I get home.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
That's it.
Yes.
My name is Jessica Roberts. and I have 2 residences, but I primarily live at 782 Cherry Valley Drive. My question is concerning my residence that I'm selling at 293 Franklin Avenue. The house is vacant currently. I've moved out. My electric bill's gone up 400% during the time that the house is vacant. No hot tub plugged in, no appliances. So all I have running is bare minimum air conditioning and dehumidifier. When I visited the utilities department, everyone there was great. The staff was fantastic. I spoke with Rich. He's gone over to my house twice and checked the meters twice, and has been monitoring them hourly. He doesn't understand why my bill was 400%, but he definitely noticed a drop in usage for that month. But the cost of the bill was 400% more than I had been paying 7 years that I've lived there. So for a vacant home that's not drawing, I'm drawing maybe, I mean, his wattage was like 17 watts a day. I think that's very low. I mean, even the refrigerator is turned off, so I barely have anything on. The bill is 400%. So now I'm selling the house, and he mentioned to me that he was unaware of the installation of the meters and if they were calibrated after. He said that between the 2 companies, the one company that owned and purchased the meters and the other company that installed them, the second company was not supposed to touch any of the calibration, but he couldn't confirm that. So my question is, how do we confirm that our meters are installed correctly? Are they inspected by someone in the city? Can we have the results of those inspections? And he did mention that maybe the city was going to do a third-party investigation about the installation of the meters, and that we could request that they be looked at for that.
You mentioned you talked to Rich, he's our electric, and you mentioned 400%. That's kind of a number that can be skewed. I mean, you could have a $1 bill and it went to $4.
$100 to $400.
In 1 month's time?
For a 900 square foot home that has, we only live there 2 weeks of the year, and 2 weeks of the year we're vacant. I just moved in next to Mr. Jeffries, like in July. So
Okay.
Jay are my
neighbors.
and my 4,000 square foot home was only $290, where my 900 square foot empty house was $400.
Yeah, she's right, 2 different companies. Eaton is the company that we put out a request for qualifications and request for proposals. So we had several proposals come in. We picked the best company. Eaton has installed millions of meters and thousands of systems. I mean, they're the biggest installer of these type of systems in the country, and that was really a big selling point with the request for proposal. We've talked to them, and they said in all the years of doing this, they have not found meters that register incorrectly. Doesn't mean it can't happen. You've sparked my interest when I've heard about some of this, so we are looking into something our utility department themselves can carry around, go right to a house, hook up, and do an inspection. I don't know how it does it, but you hook it in and it calibrates the meter of some sort.
I don't know what my bill says.
It's about a $6,000 or $8,000 piece of equipment that we're willing to buy to try to comfort some people. We also do have another policy in effect, and very rarely does anybody ever take us up on it, but if you think your meter is operating improperly, we can pull it, put another meter on, send it out for testing. We do charge you for that, but if it comes back faulty, we reimburse you. If it comes back correct, you continue to hold that charge. So we do have that policy in place. Without seeing your bills, I mean, without coming in ahead of time, I love numbers. I like looking at things, and I'm here to tell you we are not here to scam anybody. I've seen that word used kind of loosely lately, and it kind of hurts. It's embarrassing for my city workers that I know how faithful they are to the public. But if you want to come, I mean, if you've been to the utilities office, and I'll tell this to anybody, if you've been to the utilities office, you've been to the supervisor of utilities, and you're unhappy with the results, I mean, my door is open. Safety Service Director's door is open. I'd love to sit down, look at your bills, but again, in my 13 or 14 years of being around this, I've not seen one that the meter read something that didn't go through it. I don't know what the circumstances are. I don't know what could have gone through it. I don't know what could have been on, but we'd be more than welcome to bring that meter in and see if it is faulty. and we could do the math. And one circumstance, I mean, we have been, one resident did think that when we changed those meters out, we had the wrong readings, and somehow that could have skewed, which kind of made sense. If we'd have read the old meter wrong and then put this new one in, we actually categorized these old meters, and we have them in boxes, and we went through 6,000 meters to find this one person's exact meter. We took pictures of it, but that wasn't good enough for this resident. We actually found that person's meter, matched it with the serial number, and it was exactly what the meter reader. We could do that too. So we're doing everything we can to put your minds at ease. This is a horribly big project for a city our size to give a better service than what we're typically used to. I mean, this is a great one. When this is done, it's a great service. Billing is going to be timely, it's going to be accurate, and there's going to be so much more information available to the public to see what your usage is. I mean, did they offer to print out your charts to see when?
Yeah, so he's preparing 2 years of billing because the last time the weather was this warm in July was 2 years ago. And then on Wednesday, we have an appointment to meet at the house at 11 o'clock if you're interested.
Right.
And he's gonna go over the amperage and check to make sure that what it's putting out on both sides of the meter is what he's reading. The reason why he was so interested in this case in particular, because he can literally see the usage drop off when we move. And then the previous bills are around $100 a month. This one's, $395. So that doesn't, in money out and amperage out, I don't know what amps and watts and all of that means. He's the smart guy on that. I know that I'm paying 400% more, and now I have 2 residences. So between the utilities bills, that's more than I'm paying in one mortgage for one house. So
I understand. So you are happy with what we're trying to do?
Absolutely.
I really want to make it clear we're doing everything we possibly can when people come in with concerns.
They helped me right away. They pulled up everything right away.
So if you get through this entire process, and I won't come to that meeting. I mean, I really do have 100% faith in our utility workers. So if you're unsatisfied, when you're done with that, my office is the next stop you have to make.
But you can't deny if I leave home, the bill should probably go down. Usually that's the logical, it shouldn't go.
So you use all those words, usually, probably, most likely,
Well, if you shut the lights
that's
off.
probably the case, but there's
no
probably also a case where something could have been running that you didn't know about. I mean, I'm not making excuses, and I'm going to stop it
Well,
at
we had a
that.
hot tub plugged in. I have 3 large humans, 4 dogs, all the electric that they use.
I got faith that
Food.
our guys and our
Yeah,
staff will figure it
so
out and help
When you
you.
remove all of the users, there should be less
Should be,
cost.
but not
If
always.
you buy less groceries, it costs you less money, generally. Anyway, so, my question is, he did say that there was a third party coming in to assess the installation. Are you aware of that?
Our own our own utility company put in the electric meters, so there is no third party. We installed. There might have been a couple that were installed by Bellwether. Bellwether's installing water meters. We're installing the electric meters.
You mentioned a company that began with I, and I wish I had written it down, but it was a quick phone call.
Itron is the
Eaton
Eaton.
is the provider.
Itron is the meter. Etron is Eaton is the company that is project managing for us.
Okay.
Bellwether is the company that is putting and Yukon is the wireless
Couldn't
network.
necessarily answer if any of the calibration was.
Well, they can't. We have to, anytime you buy anything like that, you have to take the advice of the experts you're buying things from. And when they're telling us they're calibrated, you have to take that word. But if we find inconsistencies, that's when we're willing to go the extra step and buy this extra equipment and find a third party to come in. We haven't found that third party reasonably enough price that's going to fly in from Minnesota to come in to check one meter. So we're looking for a company to do that. But in the meantime, we're going to try to find equipment ourselves to do it.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on any topic? You may go up. McDonald?
MAC.
Okay.
Asking about the city ordinance governing parking on the street. I live in an old home on 10. We have a single driveway, and we have 3 cars registered to our house. Sometimes it's very difficult for us to maneuver the cars in the Why would we take it that far?
I guess, is there signs that say no parking?
There are no signs whatsoever on my street.
It's like between 3 and 6, 3.
Anyone else wishing to speak on any subject? Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna backtrack a little bit.
Your address, please.
My name is John Ritter, JOHNRITTER. My address is 530 Charles Avenue. We've noticed an increase in our bills as well, mostly in the usage. We did go down to the utilities office and talk to them about that. We had a lot of questions. They had some answers for us, but I'm still a little confused on why the usage has gone up and why the bill has gone up. There's been a lot of changes. I know that there's been a change in the tier pricing. There's now a straight pricing per kilowatt hour, the PPA change, and the new meters. So we noticed the increase directly after we received the new meters. My last reading for water usage was 19,000 gallons. I do not own a pool. My average prior to that was in the 8s, 9s, possibly 10, but nothing close to 19,000. And we are on track to be even higher. I did check my toilets, they're not leaking. I have no leaking pipes. I do not have water in my basement. I'm not sure if there could be a leak on the way to my house, if it would breach the meter at that point. Our electric usage is also much higher. The first reasoning by the utilities department was that it was a hotter summer, one of the hottest summers. This is the 4th hottest summer. The only 3 to beat it were 2017, 2015, and 2016. 2017 being the hottest summer. So I don't really know that that could be the excuse of why it would go up. They pretty hammered on that pretty hard, that it was the hot summer. They said that the meters are more accurate now. They read more than the analog read. They're more specific. And I did do a little bit of research on lots of other states have done this, lots of other cities have done this. And they show the same thing. You can see complaints pretty much the same that we have. Amherst Public Forum has many, many complaints about the usage and the new bills, and you can pretty much mirror that with any other state, going back to California, which is one of the first, I think, 2009. My question being, if the meters are more accurate, then why don't we show a loss in years prior, because we wouldn't have been showing as much energy as we had been actually using?
Can I answer that one?
Yeah,
We do. We actually show an over an 8% unbilled loss in the previous year, and we're trying to improve on that. And we don't have enough statistics yet to see if this has made an improvement. I do know every month I do a lot of comparisons. I love numbers. And this one's just fresh in my mind. I wrote it down when you were talking about it. Last year was a hot summer, but you've got to look at when that hot summer takes place. More of those days was in this year's billing period from what I've seen, and then next month last year was even hotter than last year's month before, because this is what our total usage, and I always like to average things out. Last year's average usage, and this goes from people, remember, using 300 kilowatts to people all the way up to 4,000 kilowatts. It was 970 kilowatts per home last year during this same billing period. This year it was just under 1,000 kilowatts. So that's less than a 3% increase between last year's usage and this year's usage. So there is the difference. This was the first full month that we used all electronic meters. So that tells me there is, even if it is the meters, and I'm not saying it can't be one meter or a couple, but overall, it shows that there was only a 3% increase in kilowatt usage between the same time period this time and last year. Next month, the average household last year is 1,220. So the average usage is going up 200 more kilowatts than actually this month was. So that I think last month was actually the hotter time period last year than the month we actually billed, according to the amount of kilowatts. that is being used. We're on track to be very similar to that, what I'm seeing, because I get reports from AMP quite often. And I talk to our rate consultant quite often when I don't look at Facebook, but all my employees that work here do, and they tell me what's happening, and I like to help them gather information for me. So I've looked at more statistics than usual. To talk about the complaints on Facebook a little bit, we pulled up about 12 of those names that are on Facebook. Got a couple of them right here. This fella here said, I've never had a bill over $200 till now. I'm just going to go right down the list. He's very close, 191, 271, 264, 217, 154, 129, but that's for a May usage. So this fella that said on the internet, I've never used more energy than that, and I've got a couple others just like it. This person had lower usage. So I'm just saying, we do the math, and I really think our system is fine, and if we have anomalies, we're willing, whoever was up here before, we're willing to work with you to check your meter. We're willing to look with you to see your usage. I don't think 1,400 kilowatts for a 2,600 square foot house is really out of line. That's pretty much what the national average is, and actually a little bit less than most people on your street use.
That's fine. And my coming here is not to present that you guys are pulling some sort of scam or anything. What I'm trying to present is that there's not enough information given to the residents prior to the change.
Can I go on? Saying we didn't give out enough information. The residents is in the mean. I mean, every resident in the city got one of these postcards. You probably threw it away. I mean, every resident we mailed. We've got the bill. We mailed 6,000 of these to every resident business in the city. Every resident that got a meter also got their door knocked on, said they were going to change the meter out. If they weren't home, they got a letter dropped off. And then now we're in the process this week. People probably will start receiving them tomorrow, the third notice that we're trying to get the water meters changed. But so it's been on our website. It's been in the newspaper many times. We've knocked on as many doors as we possibly can. I mean, these system changeouts are incredibly complicated, and to
I understand that there's information to contact you about the smart meters, but there's more changes that have actually happened that have made it more confusing. The tier pricing change.
that actually made it easier. It made it better, and it made it less expensive for lower energy customers, because the tiered pricing caused the people that use less energy to actually pay more for it. So when we average that out, everybody now pays the same kilowatt charge. I think you were.
No, what I'm saying is it wasn't communicated, so it makes the bills harder to read, harder to understand. And so a lot of that non-communication to the users of the energy and the utilities.
Again, that stuff was in the paper. We had a public hearing. We had Courtney and Associates come and explain that with a thing on the screen. I mean,
this is a council meeting. There's how many people here from the city? I'm not trying to, go back and forth with you, but I never received this. I go through my mail every day. I wouldn't have thrown it out. I would have read it. I would have seen it. I didn't.
When was mailed to your house?
Never received it. Anyway, regardless.
Can I have it back?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that a lot of the people, some of those discrepancies are the people that you're seeing with the new bills, and I know when I read the form, I see, some of these people are just not looking at their bills. They're falling into the pit of, oh yeah, everybody's bill's too high, everybody's bill's too high. Well, your bills are always too high. They're always too high. But the communication factor, like I said, it didn't work clearly, even with the postcards that they were mailed out and everybody got them, because there's still a lot of discrepancy. People are not understanding the bill, regardless. But I have a lot of questions. If you prefer that I would visit you in your office.
100% up to you. I'm happy with you coming to my office. It's open all the time. If you want to answer them in front of everybody, that's okay too.
Okay.
Up to President of Council.
What is the kilowatt hour charge for residents?
The kilowatt hour charge is just below 12 cents, but you have to add that, like I explained before, with the PPA.
Absolutely.
That was raised, adjusted, because it was so low it hadn't been adjusted since 1984. And the PPA was more than half your bill, so it was, Everybody came in, said we weren't communicating this well enough, complained about the high PPA, so we lowered it. And now what do we get? People complaining about the low PPA and the high utility charge.
Mine is just confusion. Just to be clear, mine's just confusion. What is it, are you willing to share how much we actually pay for that kilowatt hour as a city?
It changes and fluctuates depending on how much we buy. City council has passed all these different, we have a portfolio, a wide range of green energy, all the way up to coal energy and everything in between. And it fluctuates. We're probably right around 10 cents a kilowatt to purchase it. We spend right about $1 million, close to $1 million a month purchasing our power. And then sometimes you'll notice probably as soon as the cooler month comes and our transmission and demand charges are less, you'll probably see a negative PPA because we'll be spending less for that. Some of our energy that we're purchasing now was a good idea and it will be in the future, but hydroelectric power everybody thinks is very inexpensive, but the first 20 years of that, because of the cost of the plant and the expenses with producing that energy up front, is very expensive. That's probably our most expensive energy in our portfolio right now. It's about 8% of it. 20 years from now, it'll be almost free. But that power just came online. It was voted in 6-7 years ago. Those plants on the Ohio River just became active and we're being charged for that electricity. Council did a very good thing on passing the remaining requirements portion of our bill. That's about 4 cents a kilowatt power. But that's only power that's left after, in between the peak demand and the regular demand. So there's just a very small portion of our portfolio that can be remaining requirements.
And what was the rate prior to that? Just on that, it's about 9 kilowatts.
It was probably around 5 cents a kilowatt, but you had a 6 or 8 cent a kilowatt PPA. I mean, so it's just flip-flopped dramatically. So it's all the rate in a municipality that use purchase price agreement adjustment is figured as the whole picture. It's not necessarily just your kilowatt charge.
Would you be able to take a bill today and figure out what the old PPA and the old
I
charge?
can, and I could probably give you that. 20, if I remember right, there were 1,700 kilowatts on the old rate schedule was, and the numbers are going to be close. There's about $211 and $222. About $11 difference between the old rates and the new rate. It's a 7%, about a 7% difference.
7% difference?
About a 7% difference.
Where's
Total, and some of that's customer charge, some of that's not your rate. We had the lowest customer charge. We were losing money with our customer charges. It was costing us more to send our bills out and produce them and have the office staff. We had a $2.50 customer charge. I think if you look at most Ohio Edison or other, they're $7.50 to $12 for a customer charge. So we're raising that up to $10 over the next 4 years. So this year there was a $2.50 increase in the customer portion of that.
Any increase over the next 2 years?
That's all that's left is the customer charge increases.
So the rate won't go up?
The rate will fluctuate according to the PPA. So, you know, when you say the word rate, that's kind of a skewed term.
Per kilowatt hour.
That per kilowatt until we have another rates, but the per kilowatt really is figured in totality because the purchase price adjustment.
But if I see the kilowatt hour, there's a specific charge for that.
That's to the best of our ability with the rate consultant that takes our capital expenditure plan, our improvement plans, our employee costs, everything to do with the electricity to our best analysis at that point. That's what we decided, that's what the rate consultant put as the cost per kilowatt to sell to the customer. But that could go up or go down, and that's the beauty of being a municipally owned utility. We can use that purchase price agreement, so we're only passing on the charges that we actually have. So if it costs us more, we can make that a negative charge, or less, we can make it a negative charge. If it's more, we can make it a positive.
And I heard you say that. Who are or is the consultant?
John Courtney and Associates. He's in Fremont, Ohio, I believe. And he's been our rate consultant for quite a long time.
20 years.
And he's a rate consultant for quite a few cities.
Okay. And I heard you say that we did have losses during the years. Losses over the past few years or many years where we do have an 8% loss or something of that nature.
He figures out every month I can give you an unbilled, we call it unbilled losses within the industry, and we have that within water. water unbilled losses because of leaks, fire hydrants, putting fires out, we don't meter water through the hydrants, is a larger number than electricity. And our, somewhere around 8% is fairly significant, you know, within the electricity. And there's other items that could be, it's not just bad meters. That could be, you know, there's power line losses, there's a whole lot of other reasons that could be.
And when I talked to the supervisor, he said that we're not allowed to accept a loss, we're not as a municipality.
Financially, you're not allowed to accept a loss, so we have to pay for those unbilled losses through your bills, and that's part of your kilowatt charge or your PPA. So those are all divided. Everything that we say we buy, and I'm going to just throw out numbers. Say as a community we use 1 million kilowatts, and we're being charged $1 a piece for those kilowatts. We get charged that, and we divide it between our 1 million customers, and it's $1 a piece. So whatever our charge is for that month, we do the math, we divide it. Each kilowatt is divided by the amount of kilowatts that you use, and that's figured between the kilowatt charge and the purchase price adjustment. That's where the adjustment comes in.
So that loss is eaten up in our,
everybody's taking their fair share of that. No, it could be. It's probably figured into the rate because at that time we knew what our unbilled losses were. So that was a known factor at that time, and the rate consultant figured that into our rate schedule.
And that would be due to the meters not reading
There's
accurately?
100 different reasons why you could have unbilled losses. You could have ground somewhere. You can have power. There's actually power line losses where there's just electricity that goes out into the air. There's certain streetlights that might not be metered. There's just a whole lot of different things city municipality might lose, and with any power company that loses electric. Similar to a water line. If you have a little water leak, you're going to lose water and it's unbilled. Same with electric. Very similar to a plumbing system. The electric goes down the wires, and sometimes power gets lost.
And that's the residents' cost per kilowatt hours. Are businesses the same cost?
There's a different schedule, and I'm not as familiar with the businesses. They have a different rate schedule. You wouldn't like it. It's typically, I think, I'll switch my movie theater bill with you anytime. It's quite a bit more. Because we're three-phase, I mean, I think we want to adjust, talk about the customer charge. The customer charge is very low now for the businesses. A three-phase customer charge is going $10 a year for the next 3 years. So that rate from what I understand, for people with three-phase is going to go up significantly. So that rate's different. I'm flat out honest. I'm not as familiar with the commercial rates. That's handled straight through the consultant, and we don't get businesses upset. I think we have a very good rate for our businesses, but I think it's more than the residents. Now, we didn't adjust them as much. Now, I believe because they were so high to begin with, this last adjustment, the businesses didn't get adjusted as much, but they were already so far ahead, they didn't need to be. They were closer to what their rate should have been than what residents were.
Okay. And I've heard talk of, and I know nothing of it, that our costs and what we pay for power comes with a tax control.
State of Ohio did something, it's called a kilowatt hour tax. When that came out, I'm going to say in the 90s, and you're not going to be able to hold, it's been a while since we talked about it, but it's a tax that the state of Ohio enacted on the kilowatts that any electric company has. So Ohio Edison has to charge this kilowatt hour. The company itself actually gets charged the kilowatt hour tax. So Ohio Edison, it's not, you can pass it on to your customers, you're allowed to, but it's a tax on the municipality, or state of Ohio allowed municipalities to get that back, and it was meant to go into the general fund. For some reason, way back when, City of Amherst voted to put it in the electric utility. Rate consultants suggested that that's not a good practice. The utility rates shouldn't be subsidized with a tax, and he suggested we remove that, and that's a 4%. You know, that equates a 4% of that 7% increase, was charging that kilowatt tax back to the customers.
So that change was some of the increase.
That's 4% of the, that's 4
Or the 7.
of the 7. So 3 is other type of increases, 4% is that. So on a $100 electric bill, $4 of that is the kilowatt hour tax.
Right. But they used to come back to the utilities.
Used to come back to
offset
utilities,
bills.
but the rate consultant suggested we should remove it. The city definitely was in a position where we were gonna either have to raise other taxes or do something different, so it was good timing. We can use that money for things like roads. We can use it for the electric department to buy machinery if we so choose. Probably next year's budget, we'll be buying a piece of equipment through that money. So it will be used for the electric somewhat.
And so that in conjunction with what the rest of the increase in the electric, what was it, where were we short? I mean,
We were running lower. I mean, our balance was going downhill. I mean, we significantly were going downhill every month. So again, there hadn't been good rate adjustments since 1984. The PPA helped keep up with that. We were falling behind on our capital improvements. We did an assessment on all of our utility poles, and a very significant, I mean, well over 150 poles were actually decided to be, they were condemned. I mean, they were slated for immediate replacement. And those things are expensive. Our Hendrix lines, some of the commercial lines we had to replace, that was falling apart. And we've got a lot of improvements. We've got infrastructure in town that's significantly old. If we hadn't changed our capital improvement plan and put that within this rate structure, we would not be making improvements within our utility system.
Okay, makes sense. What is the cost recovery plan for the new meters? I assume that they're more costly than that one.
They are, but this is real simple. I mean, everybody, as everybody know, we're a couple months behind on our billing. I mean, you probably noticed going through all this that.
No, because they don't put days or dates.
Well, because our system's so old and antiquated, we're trying to make those improvements, but you're being billed in September for June's usage. So as we slowly catch up with that, probably one day at a time, that revenue, and each month's revenue in an electric company is about $1 million. So if we catch up, do the math, 2 months worth of electric usage over a 3 or 4 year period of time, that's exactly what's going to pay. I mean, this isn't going to cost the city. I mean, we did not have to raise rates because of these new meters. We're recouping the energy usage we're 2 months behind on billing for. So eventually, we'll push a button on the 28th, you'll get your bill on the 1st, and you're going to be billed for last month's usage. But it's going to take a significant amount of time. If we do 31-day billing periods over the next 3 years, we'll catch up.
And the gain from not having to use meter readers?
Very small.
Very small.
I mean, the inconsistencies with reading meters with manual people, somebody gets sick, I mean, the prices were going up. People that didn't make, I mean, the inconsistencies of just transposing between a handheld meter read book to the main book and then putting it in a computer, there's 3 chances of making a mistake. Again, this is one push of the button, and all your readings are going to a computer. It's going to be more consistent. There's so much more information going to be available. Eventually, we hope to have a portal where residents can get on. There'll be warnings when people's water usage is unusual at certain, somebody all of a sudden has a typical 4,000 gallon a month usage, and for some reason the meter says, oh gosh, this guy's using 7,000, or somebody.
19,000.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. I wanted to talk about that for a minute. It might have triggered that, and we would have sent somebody to your house, knocked on the door, and say, hey, there's really something wrong with your water usage. You've got a pipe broken, or the toilet's reading. But I heard something came across my desk. I think it was yours. There was 7,000 or 8,000 gallon discrepancy that we fixed for that water bill. You need to come and talk. I think we found, I think it might have been yours, but there's some water bill somehow there was a glitch between last year's reading and this, or last month's reading and this. I think there's some extra water use on your bill.
The next month I'm already scheduled 6 days in, it was already at 9,000 gallons.
No, it would have been last month's. At least that's what they're telling me. From when it came across my desk, I thought it was your bill. It might not have been.
Maybe. I hope so. I was warned so. So there is an opt-out plan as far as the meters, and I read the document for the opt-out, so we get the analog back. And it's, I believe clearly states that at any time they can come in and say, no, you're gonna have a smart meter, so that's a waste of money.
I think it says something along the line, if you fail to comply and give us access to your meters, we can remove it. Once you sign up for the opt-out program, you gotta realize there's a lot of manual
Sure.
work that goes with an opt-out program. We have waived that initial fee, I think, a couple times because these people already had the meter and we didn't really have to do any work.
I didn't know that the opt-out was there when the people showed up, that's the problem, otherwise I wouldn't have opted out. Yeah.
Well, then come in and talk to us about it and we'll see, but you know, there is an extra fee per month that you have to pay, and there's some wiring. Both meters have to be read with a remote reader at the exact same spot. I mean, we don't want meters having to knock on your door and try to gain access, but if you want that and it's already been changed out, there are some exceptions for a short period of time. But once you're in it, you're in it, and then if you decide to opt out, opt out of the opt-out, you would pay those. I mean, there's a clear contract. If you were in it for a couple months, you decide to go back to the automatic meters, you would go back and pay those administration fees, probably twice.
But I could say at the analog.
You can come in and talk. I mean, there is the opt-out program if you want to come out about waiving, if you have good excuses why you might. There's a short period of time where we would consider waiving that fee, because if you had talked about it ahead of time, and I think there was some information somewhere, you might not have received it, it appears.
I got it when I went to the office recently.
Okay.
Along with an explanation what PPA was, which was great. If you were to do that, I mean, they've already said that those meters read less accurately. They read less energy. So they're not going to read something that's plugged in and draws a little bit of energy.
Well, you probably get a new one. I mean, one that's 30 years old, you have to realize is probably rusty in the mechanics, and it's probably going to read a little slower.
No,
that's why there's the $60 charge. We're going to buy you a brand new, non-digital, non-RF type meter and put on your house. And probably every year or 10 years or whatever, we're going to change it out.
You have the old meter, you know, just install the old meter.
No, I mean, because those meters are obsolete, and we're not going to support those.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I have some more questions. I don't want to take up the entire time of the council. I think that if you would have come out early on and said the benefits, which I looked up and know it would be true, and let people know that, yeah, if I start having a water leak, they can let me know. I've had a running toilet before, broken, and got a really large water bill, and there's nothing to be done. And if I can get alerted by that, that would be fantastic. I do like that idea. I know that that's coming. I did notice that when we assumed to opt in for the smart meters, I do know that the smart meters collect a ton of information, as you said. And that ton of information can be as much as getting pretty close to, this is how much you spend in refrigerator costs, refrigeration costs, this is how much you use your water.
I don't think so. I don't think that much.
The electronic signatures of...
Ours isn't going to be quite that. I mean, you can spend zillions of dollars on the analytics of this, and ours is not going to go that far. We're going to tell you how many total kilowatts you use, and when you use them. That's about as far as this is going to go.
I thought you said earlier that we could tell you where you're spending your money, if it's on cooling or heating.
No, I didn't say that. I said when. And
okay, well, I know that those meters, and they are sensitive enough to actually have that. And if they were to have that, there's no privacy clause that we had to sign that it wouldn't be sold out. So that's a concern of mine, and probably my consumer paranoia. But you're saying that those meters do not.
they might have the ability, but we're not going to go that far. I'm not going to pay for the ability to do that. Everything you do with these things, you pay more for the software to collect that information.
So we are not right down of you're spending this much in cooling, you're spending it's just flat out.
Not on my watch. I mean, it's not going to happen while I'm here because I don't
So
think
what exactly is the benefit of the smart meter then? I mean,
accurate readings, timely readings, information of what hours you're using. What'd you say?
They're not that accurate. I worked on appliances.
Yeah, one.
Run off flow meters.
Excuse me, sir. Sir.
I asked him, no, that was my
Okay.
fault.
Okay. I have a lot more questions, and I'd rather ask them than let them linger around in the city and people talk about the my point of coming here today. This is my first time in council. And I plan to share all the information that you give me to people I talk to. So any other further communication you can have with me or anybody else, I think would benefit the city. I'm tired of people walking around saying that, you know, this is a scam or this, because then you hear it enough, everybody starts thinking that in the city. And it just turns into what it is today. So I appreciate your time. That's all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you. One moment. Mr. Miller, do you have questions?
Thank you.
for
Yes,
Mr. Ritter?
I'd
Or
like
Mr.
to,
Ritter, do you have questions for Mr. Ritter?
Yeah,
Okay,
I have
then you will-
some information,
Okay,
some
so
questions,
if
some
you will,
comments
please state it.
regarding what he said. And
Okay, fine.
if we get another person at the podium, I don't think I can handle as many that he's drawn up that comments on that. First of all, we appreciate you coming up here, and this is extremely impactful in the fact that it's going to hit you all, and we get it. I've had my disagreements with the administration on how to do this, and I've had my agreements as well. One of the things that I would say is the due diligence was done by council and was done by the administration when it comes to having a full all-out presentation of what the capabilities of these meters can and cannot do. It is an investment. I, like you, and I think the mayor too, but I can't speak for him, I'm very concerned about privacy rights, and at any rate, and in any avenue. When you turn over information, you turn over power. So for me, the less information, the better. However, our goal on council here is to give a tool for our administration to effectively give these meter reads to supply electric and water, to accurately bill residents. And what was happening, I think the mayor was trying to say, is that billing was not as accurate because PPA would be picked up by people who weren't using some of it. There was a lot of loss, there was a lot of charges thrown in that didn't directly hit the customer, or was because of the customer. It was just because of the citywide that we have. This system is going to allow us to communicate with you what the draw is in both water and electric, and how better to responsibly manage, you know, your utilities. And that was where I supported this. I mean, it was a big investment, but I supported the fact that when they give us tools to be able to monitor what our house use is, I think that's better for us. For you to go back to analog and go there, I think that's my recommendation would be to stay with this, because this is going to give you better information. It's going to give you more timely information, and you're going to be able to better adjust. One of the things that I had, and that I would ask the mayor to do, or maybe consider, is I have my bills here, and you know, one of the nice things about the mayor is he will take the time and he will explain any questions you have. He'll work with you, his staff will. He's hired good people. If they can't answer it, he knows the buck stops with him, and he's been really good. The only thing that I would think maybe we could do is maybe take this and just kind of do one of those blowouts where this is the number that means this. And I know we got a code on the back, but sometimes we don't really understand what that means. And I think that maybe I'll break down there. I do have a question, and this is for the mayor. On the very top, there is a number there. It says 0.004334 ppA/kilowatt hour. That looks like about 0.04 of a cent, but I'm not quite sure where that number, because it changes. And I do understand, as they explained to us and we talked, that our cost is going to change depending on the peak draws that we do. And when you get a hot summer and everybody's air conditioning's running, that's more expensive electricity. So we have to pass that cost along. And so at certain times of the year, we're going to see a difference in cost for electricity fluctuating a little bit. And we should expect that. It's like anything else, supply and demand. But I don't understand why that number's up there and how it relates, and if it's confusing some people.
I think it's our PPA calculation. Take it and times it by your kilowatt usage and see if it comes out to your PPA. And if it does, that's the fluctuating amount that our rate consultant figures every month to tell our billing system what to charge in PPA.
Perfect. So there's an explanation. That's something that I think some of our residents may not be getting. If I didn't catch that was actually the way that you're taking care of the PPA line up on the top there. Also, there was a computer mistake. I talked to Mr. Jeffries, and the printout said that your date 5 May through July is not May through July, it's May through June. And then I use 968 usage. I have no idea what the square foot of my house is. But it was 7/2/18 through 7/2/18. So those are just typos there. It is each month, but it's
Well, it might
months
not necessarily
behind.
be a typo. It could have been read on the
No,
last
that's
day of
not
one
allowed.
month and the first of the month
Yeah,
following.
they don't allow them, to my explanation, to put the actual day of the.
Well, there's no room on these cards. Our
Right.
software is really old, and this is all the information we can print. I mean, honestly, this new system we're using, costing a lot of money. There's going to be a lot of information. We hope to go to a better
Right.
billing statement.
And
So
that
it's
was the
all
goal.
part of
That
it.
was something that was explained to us as well by Eaton and by the consultants. This is just not enough, and it's not reader friendly. And we get that it's not reader friendly, and we're working towards that. We have offered the ability and the money to get this done. This isn't an overnight thing, and I don't see these big changes and fluctuations everybody else is seeing. I do see an increase here and there, but looking at it, I went from a PPA, and I'll be as open and transparent as you like here. PPA for us in December through January, whatever that reading was $47. We got rid of the PPA
Lowered it.
and lowered it down to just that small amount, and PPA went to 79 cents minus $1.87. Hey, you gave me back $1.91. I love that PPA. 48 cents, 243, and then 420. And that always has to do with the usage. And that fluctuation, I went back and looked at some of the older bills as well. We're going to get this down and fixed. I think the best thing that we can do, and I would ask the mayor and the administration to do, is maybe continue to find ways to explain these bills a little better. And I would ask the public to give us just a little bit more time to come up with a better statement system, get all these meters in. I would recommend going to the smart readers instead of the readers that are analog that don't really give you that
They don't really give
information.
you that. I don't really see the benefit. And a couple of the points that you made were that you can watch your usage. Well, I can go out and look at my meter at any time of the day. If you're not worried about your charges, and I'm not trying to be combative.
No, sure.
And today, and I don't know how long it'll be before we have access to the information, a portal or something that we can access to actually get that. So that's probably pretty far down the road, I would suspect.
I don't think so.
So we're working towards that goal, I think, Mr. Ritter.
I can watch it myself.
Okay.
If I'm not going to be able to see how much I'm spending in heating and cooling, if I'm not going to be able to see how much I'm spending and these, then I can't really fix it unless I go around and I unplug. I'm going to turn off my air conditioner. Okay,
Sure.
then I can figure it out. So that's the same thing I do today. So I don't see the benefit there. I see the benefit for the city. But as a resident, I'm not seeing the benefit, especially if the analog meter is going to read lower for me.
Well, you'll be getting a new meter that will be more accurate. And
It's not going to be as accurate as the smart meter.
Okay. So we're sitting at, right.
And hence the $10 charge to use the analog meter.
So that you're covering any,
I thought that was so that the meter readers could come out.
It's a little bit of everything.
So, and again, I'm not trying to be combative, I'm trying to do the best for me.
Sure.
Our costs to live in that home have risen exponentially. Whether it's due to a raise in the kilowatts, whether it's a hot summer, whatever it is. I'm not going to be able to afford a $400, a $500, a $600 utility bill every month. That's not what I have budgeted. I'm going to have to find that money somewhere, basically. So I understand all of the reasons of why the bills have gone up. Whether those are true or not really doesn't matter. It's out of, if they keep climbing, it's going to be out of range. And I understand that nationally, those are going up. But it was a plan for it. And you're talking about a lot of elderly people in the community who are on fixed budgets.
Sure. PUCO does have something available for them if the cost for utilities get to a point.
That brings up one other question. I apologize. I know I said I was done. You guys are not under the governance of PUCO, right? Because you are a municipality. Is that true?
Correct.
Correct. But someone could still contract PUCO.
I think that they could ask for, yeah,
So
for,
is
there's
it-
a financial assistance
Is it
vehicle available through
the
PUCO.
people in this room who govern the utilities department? 'Cause I know they run on their own, they're not part of the government, correct?
I guess I'm losing you there. I have no idea if PUCO, the PUCO.
No, who governs who keeps watch on our utilities? Because PUCO normally does that nationally for, other providers, but because we're a municipality, no one governs over. There's not an organization that watches.
And our consultant is who keeps an eye on everything and reports
The
back to
people
the
in
mayor.
council, I'll be flat out honest, I don't know if there's another entity that looks over us.
Not you, the utility.
Correct, I'm saying I don't,
You're saying it's possibly the one consultant or the council people here in May.
I flat out, I don't know.
Are you looking for an auditing mechanism?
Yeah, just keep an eye on them, make sure they're, on the up and up, I guess.
Yeah, the great part.
Is it the responsibility of the residents?
No, just go in and ask them for the numbers, go in and
I
ask
can,
them
I
for
can
search order
find
agreement.
out, I mean, I'll ask our consultant who the entity would be, but I'll be flat out honest. We're public utility, I assume it's council, the people, I mean, you're probably the best overseer so far right now, coming in and doing what you're doing.
Okay, well, I'm not gonna lie, that's kind of scary. Because you guys all have people overseeing each other. You all oversee each other. That's part of the government, right? Council oversees you oversee them, checks and balances. So you're telling me that there isn't a set check and balance.
There's ordinances say we have to have an accounting system that is available to the public to view. I mean, there is rules and regulations that show that in Ohio Revised Code, and within our rate structure, it actually explains how the billing and how the rate structure and how our accounting system is set up. And it says it needs to be easily, I mean, it somewhat explains, needs to be easily read by the average person. So honestly, I think it's just the public that oversees, but I'll find out if there's
Do
another
we have
entity.
access to that information?
Mr. Ritter,
Yes.
we have two councilmen who would like to also speak to some of your questions.
There's nothing that's not public that you
Yeah.
don't have access.
Madam President, I don't think
Mr.
adding any
Mr.
more is
Miller, are
going
you
to
done?
solve anything, so I'll yield the
Thank
floor
you.
back.
Thank you.
Absolutely, Madam President.
Okay.
First, Mr. Winarski and then Mr. Dombinski.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. Mr. Ritter, first of all, welcome. It's been a while. For those of you that don't, Mr. Ritter, probably one of the greatest basketball coaches I've ever had a chance to stand on a court with. But that aside, we set the rates here at council. I mean, Courtney brings a proposal to us, and then we vote on it.
I don't
Right.
think you voted on it. It was a proclamation by
Sure,
the
there was a
safety service director.
component
He
in there
came in
with
and
not
did
to
a-
exceed number,
I don't think so.
and then money was moved. I'll revisit I'm pretty sure we voted on it, but anyhow.
You voted on the kilowatt hour tax,
Uh-huh.
but I don't
The
think you
moving.
voted on the rate.
Right.
But not the rate.
He did a presentation, told you what the rate was gonna be, and then he comes up with a proclamation. I review it, and safety service director signs it.
Okay.
And that's by Ohio Revised Code. I'm told that the safety service director has ability to adjust the rates in the water and the electric.
Right, but you bring it to council. And-
We're open,
Right.
open, but we didn't, this sounds horrible, we didn't need approval by council, but, we could have asked for that, but
Correct.
we know what we're doing is prudent, we didn't wanna lose money. So if you would've disagreed, we wouldn't have done it, but we showed you the presentation on the screen, and, there was no voting, if I remember right, and Mr. Courtney presented us with a proclamation, the new rate went into effect about March. So, that's the other thing, these things are all coming to head now with all these high increases. This rate's been in effect since March.
Okay, real briefly,
It's quite a
Mr.
few were. We started putting them in April.
We'll follow up on that later. A great question. To what degree of oversight are you looking for? Like a monthly audit, a quarterly audit, just make sure we're billing appropriately?
I can't speak specifically to what kind of, but I would say that there needs to be some. An audit, making it monthly, yearly, something would be nice, and I think it would.
I don't disagree, and I
It
think
would
it's
put people at peace.
good ideas start somewhere, and this may be one.
They are an independent, they're not a part of the government, as far as I understand, so definitely would not be an independent company just charging whatever they want to residents of the community.
As far as PUCO assistance to senior citizens, I do know one council member here has worked directly with the state and has helped senior citizens here.
That's great.
And if you run across
Did
that,
not
I'll
know
happily
that.
introduce you to that person.
Yeah, that's great. I did not know that existed, and that's why I asked the question.
And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dembinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here. I actually thank everybody for being here. It's actually nice to have people come out to our council meetings. You had talked about auditing and what have you, and actually I'm going to ask this question to our auditor. We do go through yearly audits where we pass all of our books down to the state, which include our utilities department, correct? So there is some audit that takes place. Yeah, sorry, behind me. Yeah. There is some audit that does take place on the finances of the utilities department and all of the city finances.
Correct.
And actually, I believe for at least the last 6 years or so, we've had a auditor state of distinction, or it's an award which we get, which I forget the title of. I apologize.
Correct, and actually I was gonna read off tonight about the.
I'm going into your report. I
That's
apologize.
okay, but yeah, you're correct, and it's looking for anomalies, right? And some of the things that we've seen year over year with the utility department is just like cash drawer management, right? And having multiple cash drawers for, like, the utility department is one of the easiest places that they find fraud in, right? For overbillings, underbillings, things like that. But we have not found anything yet. We've been recorded with clean books for several years now. But yeah, that's something that will certainly come up.
Now, the city does the negotiation for the pricing, or does the utility?
We've bought into certain types of utilities, and we've committed a certain amount of usages, and we use our rate consultants, and we use the advice of AMP Ohio to purchase that. So we're locked into certain dollar amounts and certain amounts of energy in these different areas in our portfolio. Just like stockbrokers, we've got investments in energy, and that's where we buy it. And we're invested long-term in some runs out, and every now and then you'll see us come to council and ask to either buy a bigger portion of certain types of energy.
So that is a council decision?
Don't have to be, but we've included council in those decisions.
Okay, and we have one consultant who makes a myriad of decisions for the city, it sounds like.
Our consultant help us, and he figures out our PPA, buy whatever. He can only use the rate study. I mean, he can only do what's in that 25-page rate study. And he figures out, does the math, and takes our bill. And we get a bill every month from AMP, how much electricity we've bought. And we have items with our treasurer that would say how much money we've collected. And right now, I mean, honestly, we've been fairly stagnant. We haven't gained, but it might seem like a lot, but I think about $100,000 this year we've gained in our electric department fund. But that's solely because I haven't spent money on a machine yet that I want to buy next year.
Well, I'm just wondering why that consultant is not like an auditor, a law director.
He's an outside service. He's a consultant for, he's not an elected official.
Why not?
He spends probably 20 minutes a month figuring out our rates. So do we want a full-time person spending 20 months a month? I mean, he has 100 different cities that he works for.
That's why I asked the question.
Yeah. He's there to figure out that PPA and look at our rates and do a study, and each year he gives us suggestions on what needs changed. It's a consultant that we really don't even have to have. It's somebody we do for the convenience of the administration, because he's well versed in all the rules and regulations and very good at the math, I'm sure. But we could do those things ourselves. We don't have to have a consultant. It's something we decide to do because I think it's better for the people to have one.
Excuse me, Mr. Dembinski still has the floor.
Sure.
Sorry, thank you. And actually, just one other quick thing. For our area, I am actually your ward councilman, and I would love it if you would be willing to contact me anytime to talk about any concerns you have. Anybody up here, even if you don't want to contact me, anybody up here is fantastic, and they'll also listen to your concerns. Facebook can be great, but especially that particular place in Facebook can also not be great. I can tell you that there was a lot of traffic on there and a lot of concerns came from there, and that can be good. It's also not an official means of communicating with the city. I received 0 phone calls actually from residents about their rates.
It was more of a fact finding. It was more of a share between the community, data finding, and I find that that is a good way to start.
It can be, as long as the information presented is accurate too.
Right. So you have to look at patterns, and you have to look at how much information. Now, if you had posted that and no one had come back, then you know it's you. So it's a good start. It weeds out, saves time, gives me an idea of how other people in the community are feeling or not feeling. Obviously, they're confused, angry,
Oh, I understand, and my,
those types of things. And that's where it stopped, and that's why I came to a council meeting to address the questions that I have.
but I hope that anybody in the city can feel comfortable going to anybody on council, anybody in the administration. We really are just here to help. That's the only reason we do this.
From our perspective, and I'm sure because you've been there at some point in your life, it's hard to go to a councilman with only your story when you're talking about a global city. So getting that feedback initially helps someone speak intelligently to a councilman and or a mayor of, I see this pattern, is this something that we need to take care of?
I understand. I just wanted to put out there that
I understand.
I know there are people that don't monitor that page, and that's intentional. And then there are some that do, and that's intentional also. So
I understand.
just wanted to point that out. But thank you again.
Fantastic.
Okay.
That's all. Thank you.
Mr. Miller, you're asking to speak again.
I can.
Do you wish to speak to Mr. Ritter, or is he
No.
allowed to sit down now?
No, thank you, Madam President. Yield
Okay.
the floor back.
Okay.
Thank you for all your comments and your
Thank you.
time. And I appreciate everybody else's time as well. I know I took a lot.
Thank you very much. I
Thank you.
appreciate that very much. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Yes. Please state your name and your address. Again.
Jim Mullen, 238 South Main Street. I just had a couple of questions for the mayor and the council. What is the kilowatt hour tax that the city gets back each year, an amount?
It's just over $400,000, I believe.
470? Well, that's what's in your budget, $470,000 that you took out of the electric department. That had been going there for 17 years. My second question is, under what authority did you raise the electric rate, the base electric rate?
Ohio Revised Code.
What about the Amherst codified ordinances?
There is one Amherst codified ordinance that said if the electric balance falls below $350,000, the safety service director shall raise the up to 5% without city council. But that ordinance, according to all the information I have and our rate consultant, said that only comes into effect if our balance falls below $350,000. Read the very first sentence of that. It says when the balance falls below $350,000.
919.
Correctly, read the first sentence. It says when the balance falls below $350,000.
Right.
And that's the only time that comes into
And you
effect.
can raise it 5%.
Only when,
And you
but
can raise it
according to Ohio
only-
Revised Code, the safety
and
service
you can only
director,
raise it 5%.
when
Anything
it falls
above
below
that
3,
must go to council. Is that
when it
correct?
falls below, the only time that chapter's enacted is when it falls below $350,000.
Okay, how about this part of it? Chapter 919, electricity. The authority to fix electric light power rates to be charged to consumers in the city owned electric light plant is vested in city council.
If you read the very first sentence of that chapter, it says when it falls below $350,000.
One has nothing to do with the other.
It's the
This is
same
saying-
chapter. It's the same chapter.
But this is saying, yeah, what it's saying is the only time the administration can raise the rates is if.
Not according
the
to
elec-
Ohio Revised Code and our rate consultant.
Well, that's not what this says. This says the only time the administration can raise the rates is if the electric department balance falls below $350,001.
It doesn't say the only time. It says when it falls below.
Mr. Pecora.
We're missing
Yeah,
words.
Okay,
We're missing
well,
words.
I would like to recognize Mr. Pecora because he'd like to speak on that.
Well, I'd like to just mention a couple of things. There's a lot of good questions here tonight that clearly we're not prepared to answer. And one thing I've learned is being an attorney, you don't say much if you don't know the answers. So what I would recommend is that we have another meeting soon. We have Mr. Courtney here. It gives us some time to do some research. We are authorized as a municipality to operate our utilities. in
Which
fact,
is best in the hands of city council.
hold on, in a manner according to our ordinances, it's also the Ohio Revised Code. I think there's some confusion about the Public Utilities Commission and their governance over our utilities. That all needs to be ferreted out. Right now, I hear a lot of this talking back and forth without any real clear answers, a lot of confusion. And I don't think it's helpful for the citizens to be, that we're confused or we're not speaking with authority. And until Mr. Courtney's here to discuss it with us, and until I could review this, we're not speaking with authority. We're just going around and around. I think citizens deserve better, and they deserve answers. So I
Our
would,
council will take this into consideration, that perhaps you have the vested interest in setting rates, not the administration. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on any item tonight? Yes, please come to the podium and state your name and your address, please.
Ryan Daly, 749 Tenny Avenue. Mine's also on the utilities. I've got a couple answers already. I don't know who wants to, I'm not pointing to anybody. My water bill went up from, it's been running 3s, and then this time it's 7. And no, I don't have a pool, so it's not, I'm not using that much more that I can think of. The electric went up from, usage was running in the 1,050, 1,048. We even had a drop there at 847, 1,024. This one was 1,575. Well, when I start looking at my bill, I pay my bill every month, like everyone does. Every month I'm paying, and it's pretty much the same, 176, 167. On this one, it's the dates you were talking about. Depends on when they read it. And if it's in that month, it's that month's reading. I go from a February to a March one, which makes sense, and that's due in April. Then I went to, the next one was March to March, and it was due in June. And then I got a March to April, which was due in, I'm sorry, my mistake. The last one was May, it was the 5th month. The June bill was March to April. Then I have April to May, which was due in July. Then I have May to June, which was due in August. But then I come up to this one, which is the large one, which might be part of the reason I don't know. That one went from June to August, and it was due this month, September. Is this a double month bill?
Shouldn't be.
Or, you know what I'm saying? I mean,
There are no double month bills. I mean, it's
Okay.
the same billing system we've been using for 20 years.
so I caught,
Don't know why the confusion all of a sudden.
well, could
There's
this
no
be?
dates. There are no 2-month bills. It could be a 5-week read. I mean, unless we go to the utility department. This really isn't the place, you know, Madam President, I might discuss it.
I have no
This really
problem.
isn't the place to go over these individual bills. I've got no information. We really need the utility director to be looking at these. If they want to stop, talk to utility department. If they don't find the answers they need there, talk to superintendent utilities. If it needs to end up at my desk, I'm more than happy to talk to these people.
I'm not
privately.
arguing your
But I mean,
point.
there's really nothing we're going to solve by
No,
looking at these
and
bills
mine
tonight.
is, I just came up to listen to the meeting, but I brought my stuff just in case. But so logically, if we had the last month of June and the first month of August, it would show up this way, is what we're looking at. I'm
There
wondering
shouldn't be a
if-
2-month billing. I mean, it's,
Okay,
there's no ability on these bills to show an exact date. We would have to pull
Okay.
the books up to see when the exact dates. So it could have been the last day of June and the first day of August, when I don't know.
That's what I'm asking, okay.
So
I just
until
want
we look at the
clarification
books,
on
we
that,
don't
and
know.
I know it should be at the utility department, but I figured it'd come up because I knew it was gonna be a discussion on this, and I just wanted to see if I could get some of my answers, which I did, you know, but I don't mean to take up the time, I just wanted to find out if there was a, you know, if being that it was a longer period is why some of the bills showed up, and it might have been the answer, I don't know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Is there anyone else who has any new information that they'd like to share? Yes, Mr. Nahom.
Just briefly, thank you very much. First of all, I really appreciate everyone being here. You know, being involved in your local government, talking to your council representatives, your mayor, very, very important. Much better than Facebook. I know it is a tool, absolutely it's a tool, but talking to people face to face, in person, meeting with them, discussing issues, having your hard copy bills in front of you, running the reports, all that stuff, much more accurate, much better information. I am the newest person on council, learning a lot, and before I was on council, many years ago, I was involved in local government. I would come in, I would sit there and ask questions, and previous administrations, I just really have to mention this, previous administrations, previous councils that were up here, you'd have a resident ask a question, and everybody up here and over there would sit and look at you, and the next person would come up, and there was no discussion, no information provided. So I really appreciate the administration, especially our mayor tonight, really answering the questions, providing information. This is the best I've ever seen, and you know, being so new up here, I can appreciate your position, where you're sitting there, how you feel coming up there, and this is a really good session that we've had this evening. So. But I do just want to echo again what the mayor has said and what others have said. Bring your bills in, they'll run reports, they'll look at it, they'll talk to you about it, because it really is important to look at those specifics and get the specific answers. So thank you very much. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nahorn. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on any subject with new information? Seeing none, thank you very much for coming tonight. The next meeting of council is 2 weeks from tonight, and it's at 7 o'clock also. Again, thank you very much. And now we will go on to item 10, agenda requests and committee meeting schedules. Madam Clerk?
Yes, these items that I'm going to read right now were assigned since the last council meeting, and they were already considered in committees. A 1834 was in finance, accept grant from Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation for the purchase of hoods and gloves for fire department. A 1835 went to finance, reappropriate funds in the fire department. A 1836 went to finance, authorizing submission of application to OWPC for state issue 1, round 33 for funds for the year 2019 for repairs and improvements to North Main Street and Cooper Foster Park Road. A 1837 went to finance. It was a resolution to place 1.5% income tax renewal levy for a period of 10 years under 2019 primary ballot. 1838 finance, an ordinance replacing the present 1.5% income tax passed 1109 with 1.5% income tax renewal levy upon passage and approval by a majority of the voters of the city of Amherst. Also was called to committee in the meantime was A 1831, and that's the property maintenance code. Now the new ones, Madam President, signed tonight. To finance, A 1839, reappropriate funds in various departments, and there's an attached appendix with all the appropriations. To finance, A 1840, increase appropriations for several items in the fire department wages, and fire levy, gasoline, and oil. To ordinance, A 1841, reappoint 2 members of the local board of tax, and this is for the review for the local Board of Tax Review. And then to executive, A 1842, requesting a part-time permanent tax assistant position to be established. And to finance, A 1843, authorization for upgrades to the video recording and broadcasting of the council, committee, and regular meetings not to exceed $50,000. That's all I have, Madam President.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll call on committee chairs now. Finance, Mr. Calgar.
Thank you, Madam President. I have 3 items. First item, A1839, reappropriate funds in various departments. A1840, increase appropriations for the following fire part-time wages and fire levy gasoline and oil. And A1843, authorization for upgrades to the video recording and broadcasting of the council committee and regular meetings not to exceed $50,000. And that is complete, Madam President.
When do you wish to call that?
Next Monday at 7.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
17th.
Thank you very much. Building and Lands, Mr. Winarski.
Nothing at this time, Madam President.
Thank you. Streets, Mr. Van Truwen.
Nothing at this time, Madam President.
Thank you very much. Community Development, Mr. Miller.
No items, Madam President, please cancel.
Executive, Mr. Miller.
1 item, Madam President, A-18-42, requesting that a part-time permanent tax assistant position be established, calling that for 7:05 on 9/17/2018.
Thank you. Is that complete?
That will complete Executive Committee. Thanks, Madam President.
Is 7:05 okay for your start time?
Yep, 7:05. It's fine. Thank you.
Ordinance, Mr. Dembinski.
Yes, Madam President, I have 1 item, A-18-41, reappoint 2 members of the local board of tax review. I'd like to call that for Monday, September 17th at 7:15.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dembinski. Utilities, Mr. Janik.
None at this time, Madam President. Keep your eyes on the
Thank you very much, Mr. Janik. Recycle, Mr. Nahorn.
Please keep recycling.
Thank you. Technology, Mr. Dembinski.
No items at this time, Madam President, please cancel.
Thank you. Police and Fire, Mr. Winarski.
Nothing at this time, Madam President.
Thank you. Annexation, Mr. Van Truwen.
Nothing at this time, Madam President. Please cancel.
Okay, thank you very much. We will go to item 11, reports of the administration. Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Madam President. Mr. Pitek?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple items to note. Sent out the month-end financial reports. We're on the 1st of September. You all should have received these review. Let me know if you have any questions. Secondly, we received notification about 2 weeks ago from the state that we're one of 5 cities that qualified for the Auditor State Award with distinction. And what that means is that award's given out to a select few companies that have reported clean books for the year. We have an independent auditor come in every year and assess how we're doing from an accounting perspective. So that really, while it may not seem like a big deal, one out of 5 cities in the state is a pretty big deal, and that's just a true testament to the staff that we have in the auditing department. Really, Deputy Auditor Gwen Melbar and Carol Schauber do a fantastic job, very detailed, organized, work extremely hard, and you guys call on them way more than you call on me, and they do a wonderful job for the city. So I just wanted to give a quick bit of recognition to them for all their hard work. That is the end of my report.
Thank you. Great report. Mr. Jeffries?
No report, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pecora?
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I just will talk about 1 item. The smart meter project is moving along very well. All the residential meters are in place. We've actually had our first billing cycle, as you've heard tonight, with using the automated system for the electric meters. We are doing our best to get into every house and change our water meter. It's a little slower than we anticipated. We're about 1/3 of the way through, I think. So we have knocked on every door at this point trying to get in. We've dropped off letters. So before we started the process, you've seen the postcard a little while ago. We did mail a postcard to every house. We've dropped a letter off at every house. And now starting today, we actually have gone through the database, and I put a copy in your mailboxes. The newest letter, which will go out to every resident that has not yet received a water meter. While we're receiving this, our IT director, which I'm very proud of that department, has set up a website where residents can go on. I've done it several times myself. I've had some family members and people go through and do it. It seems to be fairly easy to use. You can set up your own appointment, half-hour window. They'll come in and change your meter. Or if you're uncomfortable with the website, you can, there's 2 ways to get to the website. Go to the city website so that you know it's a true thing, or you can go directly to the ME meter change at .as.me and go directly to the site if you like, or just call our utilities office and either Bellwether or one of our own city utility workers will come in and change your water meter. It's really a quick process. So the sooner we get those done, better off the whole system will be. Guess that's it. I guess I really do just want to say, somewhat embarrassed the way a lot of our public is handling this utility thing with our meter workers and our utility workers in the office. They're quite often being treated pretty poorly. I don't think they deserve that. They really true have their heart in what they're doing. They really do a good job. They are not trying to stiff anybody. They work very hard at what they do, and a lot of times they might offer more information than they should have, but honestly, when they tell you they think your toilet's leaking or your air, those suggestions are coming from their heart. They really don't have to give you those suggestions. They're not just excuses. Those people in that office really is trying to be helpful. So please take that into consideration when you're going there. Nobody comes in that office to thank them for their utility bill. You know, everybody they see is complaining. So take a deep breath before you go in that office. Realize you're there and realize those people really are there to help you. And we really are here in the administration too. So appreciate you for letting me vent there a little bit, but appreciate everybody's patience during this process. End of report.
Thank you. Mr. Miller.
Move to accept reports of administration.
Mr. Dembinski.
Second.
There's a motion and a second by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion is carried 7-0. The reports of the administration are accepted. We'll go on to item 12. Acknowledgement of the receipt of monthly reports from July and August from the auditor and the treasurer. Mr. Patak mentioned that he had submitted the reports, and I also believe that you should all receive the reports from the treasurer also. And with that, Mr. Van Tuin.
Who can acknowledge receipt of monthly reports from July and August from auditor and treasurer?
Mr. Miller.
Second, please.
There's a motion and a second to acknowledge the receipt of the monthly reports from July and August from the auditor and the treasurer. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion is carried 7-0. Those reports are acknowledged. Number 13, adjournment. Mr. Dembinski.
Move to adjourn.
Mr. Calver.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion is carried 7-0. We are adjourned at 8:50 p.m. Thank you very much. Thank you all.